We'll be standing for the opening karakia, please.
Shutting it down.
Te taua mai oranga.
Te taua mai raro. Te taua mai roto. Te taua mai waho. Kia tau mai Māori tū. Te Māori ora. Ki te katoa. Umi e, ui e, tahi e.
Thank you. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the council Facebook page. I have apologies from Chad, Greg, those two. Do I have a move? Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Crystal. Seems funny that we haven't got Greg here to move all these things. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Any conflicts of interest?
Item 1.
Item 1. Sweet. No public forum. Announcements by the Mayor?
Napier, just wanting to say that, was it yesterday or the day before? We opened the new basketball court at Petani Domain, which was funded through the Napier Relief Fund and NZ Basketball. So really fantastic to have that new community facility out there for our rangatahi and tamariki who obviously have had a rough time after Cyclone Gabrielle, and it's created a great space for them to go and connect and support each other. So that was really exciting, and encourage people to go along and have a look.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Any notifications of minor matters not on the agenda, please? By the way, I have no announcements. I guess I should say I've retired as chair of the Hawks basketball, and an announcement will be made soon on who's taken my role. Thank you. Any announcements by management?
None.
Could I confirm the minutes for the Sustainable Napier Committee meeting held on the 10th of August 2023, please? Moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So we move on to agenda item 1. Brian Faulkner here, please. This is the lease of reserve land, Patani War Memorial Reserve.
Marina. This is really a straightforward procedural matter under the Reserves Act, just to seek Council's approval to increase the land area subject to the lease of Esker United Football Club. They're in a growth phase out at Patani Domain and want to extend their clubhouse and their deck. So this is really a matter under the Reserves Act. So that's a positive sign out at Patani Domain that the football club out there is in a growth phase. So our Jason, team leader, sports grounds and reserves, he's in agreement with that as a reserves asset manager. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor McGrath. Do you wish to speak to it?
Just that this is a straightforward procedural matter, but it's really exciting to see that this is expanding and exciting for the Bayview community.
Councillor McGrath.
No more than what Councillor Brown had to say, really.
I was talking to Viv Moll, who's involved out there at the opening of the I never said tennis court, basketball courts, and he just reiterated the fact that there's just a real growth in the football out there, and once again, it's really good, exciting. It's good for Bayview and the area around it. Okay, I put the motion as per the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thumbs up.
Against? I don't know why it's doing that. It's turned off.
Give it to Anna, she'll sort it out. Carried.
Carried. I just thought it might have been an objector trying to call in. Okay. Item 2, lease of reserve, Whitmore Park, Tongoia Marae. Once Brian and Jason again.
Yeah, once again, this is a Reserves Act matter. So we're seeking council's approval. I guess initially it's really in principle to enter into a lease with the trustees of the Tongoia Marae for the use of the land for a temporary marae for an initial term of 3 years and 2 further 1-year right of renewals. So as explained in the agenda item, Basketball Hawke's Bay through their Wairere Trust have surrendered their lease on their buildings and site at Whitmore Park. So we have on council's side a bit of a dilemma what to do with that. On the other side, the Tongoia Marae, as said in the report, that they were destroyed or damaged in the cyclone, and they're looking for a site for a temporary marae. Long term, their goal is to find new land in the Tongoia area for a permanent marae. But that's proving very difficult, and they have been looking for 5 or more years, even prior to the cyclone. So they're very keen to take on this site at Whitmore Park. However, the complications are that under the district plan, that land is zoned sports ground, so we are required to get a resource consent to have the marae activity there. And also under the Reserves Act, once again, it's a recreation reserve, and technically the marae doesn't necessarily sit with that. So any agreement by council is subject to obtaining a resource consent and also the public notification process under the Reserves Act. So we've already started that resource consent process, and it is our intention to, I guess, consult with the neighbouring area, with the neighbours, for bringing that marae in there. But anyway, they're really keen. The marae is really keen on that site. And there is a problem for council in that with Basketball Hawke's Bay vacating that site, it's really exposed to vandalism, and we've already had the back sort of toilet block smashed up. So it is really important for council to get a new activity in there and a tenant. And if it's an activity that has an association with the surrounding area, that's even better. In terms of the Tongoia Marae, most of the hapu members that are associated with the Tongoia Marae actually live in Napier, and many of them in that surrounding area. So I don't know whether you've got anything to add, but happy to take any questions.
You know, I just think it's a good opportunity, as Brian has alluded to, for council to also help the Tongoia Marae, who are in a real pickle at the moment. So yeah, happy to support it from an officer's recommendation, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Bowe?
Through you, Mr Chair. Yes, I think this is a win-win. Is this similar to the situation we have with Pukemuki Marae, which is also on a sports reserve?
Well, the Pukemuki Marae was purpose-built, so that obviously all those consents and that were obtained at that time. Yeah, I guess this is will be a temporary urban marae, the same as Pukemuki is an urban marae. So I guess, yeah, there is a precedent there in council supporting an urban marae, yeah, on council land, yep.
Thank you.
Kia ora. I think through the chair, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest, being a hapu member from Tangwell.
Okay, no worries. Councillor Simpson?
Through you, Mr Chair, I wonder, this is a fantastic solution. It's a win-win for everyone. I wonder if they register themselves as a sports club, we can get around that loop. Perhaps Hawke's Bay basketball could leave a couple of balls behind. And
There will be a couple of courts there. Councillor McGrath?
Just through the chair. will the consents that have to be gained, will that cover things like alcohol usage, overnight accommodation? I think it says in here birthday parties and tangis. Will it cover times and days and activities that can and can't happen within the district plan?
The resource consent will cover times and activities. I mean, if they, my understanding is, sorry, through the chair, that they don't intend to have a liquor licence. And we've been quite clear that under the current building warrant of fitness and fire requirements, that overnight sleeping is not allowed within the buildings, and we've been quite clear about that. If that was to happen, then it would trigger a whole minefield of a new building consent in terms of fire regulations and what have you. And appreciate at a tangi that the family do traditionally stay with the deceased person. But you're right, the resource consent will cover all the allowed activities and what have you.
Councillor Taylor?
My question goes back a fraction. What was the reason why Basketball Hawke's Bay decided to give up the lease?
Well, through the chair, as I understand, I'm sure the chair is fully aware of all this. There was a proposal for the Basketball Hawke's Bay to build those big dome courts and what have you. For some reason, that never eventuated. So they have now relocated their administration functions here to McLean Park, and they'll be using the Centennial Hall here for the games, and they'll have their administration functions here. I don't know whether the chair's got anything to add, but
I think it's cheaper for here, and the burglaries was pretty horrific. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Brian, just seeking some clarity on the regulatory situation you described to Councillor McGrath earlier. In terms of an option, if the Marae trustees were to want to enable overnight sleeping, you're not precluding them from applying for the appropriate consents and remedial works to the building if required in future?
well, council will retain, through the chair, council will retain ownership of the buildings, and the responsibilities for the building warrant of fitness and the compliance will rest with council. So it would trigger quite substantial alterations to the building in terms of fire and egress and what have you, and bearing in mind that it is a temporary situation. There may be, in terms of perhaps overnight sleeping in a tent on the site, there could be workarounds there.
So just through you, Mr. Chair, seek some further clarification. Are you confident that the lease document does provide a pathway if they were to receive funding and want to undertake that substantial work, acknowledging that, to allow that to happen, that there is a pathway within the lease for them to receive approval from us for those alterations to the building?
Yes, I guess that would have to be considered at the time, who's funding that, what requirements that would trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the lease does allow for...
Yeah, I guess, in the future that could happen, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess the way I see it, Deputy Mayor, was if they had the funding to get us to upgrade it to what they want, they can do it. Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Yeah,
provided
I
we go
suppose I
through
was-
all the proper channels, proper
Yeah.
regulatory
Yeah.
channels, yes.
Sorry. Oh,
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I was just seeking certainty that that door was not closed per se, and I think I've received that, so thank you.
Did you want to say something else?
no, I was just going to confirm exactly what Deputy Mayor said.
Okay. Do we have any further questions? Do I have a mover for this, please? Councillor Crystal, seconded by Councillor Crown. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I just think this is a really positive thing for the Tongoia
hapu and community to have somewhere to go. They've been devastated, and it's, I know it's short term, but it will give them somewhere to get together again. So I think it's a great solution, and for council, we don't want that sitting empty to get vandalised. So I think it's a great move for both parties.
Councillor Crown.
Thank you. Yes, very elegant solution, as mentioned previously by a number of speakers this morning. But also, I think that it also lends itself to the approach that council have taken in response to Cyclone Gabriel, and us trying to look after our people, whether they're within our boundaries or not. So, yeah, very supportive.
Is there any other comments? Okay, I'll put the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Jamie, capital program delivery.
Yes, Tamari, good morning, everybody. I can take the report as read, but just note a couple of points like I normally do. So the finance figures were received after this report was published, but I can update you on those now. So for the year to date, so 31st of August, the capital program spend was 7.9 million, and that compares to the reprioritised budget of 12.5 million for the same period. So we're just a tad behind at this stage. It's pretty brief today. And then I've just got a couple of photos, I think, attached to the report there. So I've got an update from the Rangatira revetment down by Whakaruri Ave. So that's progressing pretty well, as you can see in the photo. And they're hoping to be finished by, oh, cheers, mate. Thank you. Yeah, all good, thank you. Later next month. There are some preparations underway for a project completion functions, I think, happening in November. And just a little update on one of these retaining walls that we're working on across the hills. This one is at Gleeson Park, so they're starting to get underway and get that retaining wall in to support the road there. So that's pretty much me. Just wondering if there's any questions.
Councillor Bogue.
Just through you, Mr Chair. Just with respect to the Gleeson Park retaining wall and the Hooker Avenue, is Hooker Avenue going to be restored to a two-way road, or will it stay one-way downhill as it is now?
I don't know, sorry. Oh, here we go. Robin will know. Two-way. Oh, there we go.
Excellent,
Thanks,
you.
Robin.
Rode my bike down there.
Mayor Wise.
Thank you, through the chair. Just looking at the project schedule, giving us an update on projects. As always, fabulous to see a sea of greens there. Just the Puketitiri road safety improvements. I note that we're currently tracking quite a bit ahead of the programmed budget. Do you have any additional information on that one?
No, sorry.
We just make it,
But I can-
Robin,
I can-
Robin, right?
I can find out.
Fabulous.
So the progress with mission development, that's Emerald Hills now, has required, progress on the Mission Hills, the Emerald Hills development has required a bit of a flurry of activity from us in terms of design, geotechnical stuff and property evaluations. There is a property purchase that we need to do just along for the new alignment of the road and some preparatory earthworks as well. So our timeline is being pushed really by trying to tie in with them and not hold them back.
Okay, so it's more a timing issue as
Yep.
opposed to being open.
Yep.
Lovely, thank you.
I know that those numbers come out of magic into cycle, so whether or not that's up to date as well, possibly. I can have a look at that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
It's, yeah, just to add to that, it's probably a reflection of the change of ownership of that development and the, yeah.
Increased pace.
That's correct, yeah. Yep.
Any further questions, please? No further questions. Do I have a mover for the accepting of this report, please? Mayor Wise, seconded by Councillor Bogue.
I'll just say thank you very much for the update.
Thank you.
Nothing else? Okay, all those in favour of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 4, water services reform. Russell will be dealing with this.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Lauren has, on a well-deserved holiday, going to celebrate her sister's wedding in England. So, I'm quite pleased to take the report as read. It's an update on where we're at with the water reform process, with some of the key pieces of the process and the legislation being signed off, and just how we're progressing with that pathway there. Some of the things that obviously that we get asked quite often is around the potential impact of the election process. So we staff are still under a statutory obligation to proceed with this until we're advised otherwise from central government. So that is the general case as to why we're continuing with the process. So so there's a lot of bits and pieces happening in and around the coordination across the region with Gisborne, Tairāwhiti and the Hawke's Bay. So yeah, it's quite a busy piece of work for the staff across the region, as well as with all the other work we're happening. So I'm quite happy to take some questions.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Russell. I think you highlighted what I consider one of the biggest risks to this in your preamble, so thank you for that. I'd be interested to understand what, if any, planning is going into if, in the background, if that risk is realised around a change government and what that looks like for our internal resourcing. The other question I always have when I see these papers come up is, do we have the finger on the pulse of what the cost to our businesses so far in the transition planning, and whether or not any of that cost has been able to be recovered in any way. Happy if either of those come back to us, but just sharing my thinking.
Yep. No, I can make comment on those. There is some risk planning in that regard around the what-if scenario. So and maybe Louise can comment, but I know that the CEs are talking across the region about what's needed if that was likely to happen, and where we might end up with maybe relooking at what the Hawke's Bay water model would look like post that decision. So, and obviously with some with the impact, the economic impact of the cyclone on some of our neighbours is quite a heavy burden for them, and what that might be, in not only waters but other shared service arrangements to help with the region at large. So I know that those conversations are happening at the moment, and that sort of thinking. I haven't seen any detail, but I don't believe we're at that stage at the moment. And the cost to business at this point, we do have a transition fund from the DIA, and that is where all those costs are being drawn from. I believe that we had 670,000 as a budget last year, but I believe it's been topped up. I just don't know that figure in the last 6 months has been added to as well. So.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, just to clarify, are you saying 100% of the cost internally in exercising the transition work is coming from DIA? 100%?
I couldn't with clarity say 100%, but the majority of that, like some of the positions we've employed through either consultants or even some of our temporary staff, are 100% funded from that budget, yes.
Just through you, Mr Chair, that would be really helpful if that could be covered off if there's future papers under the financial section.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair, just a question around the data migration and the asset management planning components. Clearly, there's been demands from Wellington around getting that information.
Yep.
Will that information that's been collected in Wellington then be made back available to us if the government changes and then the reform system changes? In other words, what I'm looking at is the time and effort we've put in. Will there be an advantage to assist us with our decision-making early next year?
Yes, through the Chair. That is correct. Yeah, we've expressed our desire to have that, so the IP available to the councils, so that all the work and the learnings so far is not lost. And we would then, the councils that do choose to go through a reform process for whatever reasons, have that advantage of what's been happening with the DIA-funded activities. So yes, absolutely.
And just a supplementary, through you, Mr Chair, are we finding amongst the Hawke's Bay local councils similarities in the systems and processes that we currently have in-house, or is there quite disparate systems?
That's been the challenge, I guess, nationally. Yeah, that there are certain similarities, but even where, and take for some of our digital solutions, even where we have similar systems, the way we've implemented them are slightly different. And it might be depending on, they might have a similar financial system, but they'll have a different asset management system and just how differently they talk and how it's structured. So, and that's been the challenge for the DIA and their digital team in trying to unbundle that to create a national sort of system. So, yeah.
Yeah, wise.
Thank you. Through the Chair, I guess following on from Councillor Simpson's questions, with the imposition of the 1st of October 2024 go-live date for NTF, presuming that that does proceed, are we confident that we will be in a position to go live on that date?
Are you asking the staff or the entity?
And I guess it's not just
very
all five
confident,
councils. It's all, I guess it's all five councils because all five councils have to be aligned. So
that's correct. Yeah. So there is a lot of concern, I guess, for that deadline and the amount of work that staff do have at this present time. The DIA are looking at setting up a local office. So they're currently putting resources into this local office to resource it. They do recognise the costs or the, I guess that's the time involved in needing to set it up. So they've got a similar setup in Wellington, but they do recognise they need a local presence. So they are looking at currently pulling resources together. Yeah.
have they given any indication when that support office is likely to be operational?
They did give me a timeline. I'm just trying to remember. You don't recall the time? It's like in the matter of weeks or.
Trying to do it before Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's.
It would normally be an through the chair. Normally it would be an 18-month lead-in for go live. Obviously we're under that, so they're trying to stand it up as quickly as possible. But I don't know how they got to, but certainly they were aiming before Christmas.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, or as much as it could? Any further questions? Okay, do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Greg. Moved, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Would you like to speak?
It's just unfortunate our staff are being distracted.
Yes, a bit of watch the space, really, isn't it? Okay, all those in favour, oh, sorry, Councillor Brown, did you want to speak?
I was just going to point out it's good to see the legislated job guarantee element in there, and I hope that that gives some certainty and reassurance to almost 50% of our staff are included in one of those 3 boxes. So it's a good step.
Okay, nobody else? All those in favour of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 5, Establishment of Active Transport Committee. Owen and Robin, is it?
It's a very popular item, this one.
You know it.
So through you, Chair, I'd just like to introduce Owen Mater. I think probably many of you already know Owen. He's been very involved in helping Council implement a lot of our active transport works over the last probably 5 to 6 years. But now, fortunately, we've got him on the team permanently. So just hand over to you, Owen.
Thanks, Robin, and good morning, everyone. So this report is simply to do with the proposed establishment of an active transport group for Napier. The idea behind that is to get a bit deeper and wider community feedback on an input into proposed and current walk-in cycling projects that we have, and also to achieve a bit wider regional coordination between walk-in cycling projects that might be going on with, say, Regional Council or Hastings District Council. Attached to the report is a proposed terms of reference, which suggests that this group would meet quarterly, and it would be composed of representatives from the community as well as the police, the Youth Council, Regional Council, Hastings District Council and Waka Kotahi as well. It's not proposed that this group would have decision-making powers in itself, but it would just be a forum to get community input and then make recommendations to the Sustainable Napier Committee. So the recommendation in the paper is that that the establishment of the group is approved, that the terms of reference are approved, and if that's approved, then the group would be chaired by Councillors Taylor and Gregg. Any questions, I guess?
I just have one question, Manawhenua. In the terms of reference, should they be in there?
Should they be?
As the groups of interest. We've got Waka Kotahi transport agencies.
I believe that they were actually, so that's that's an omission if they're not included. No.
So we can add that in.
Yeah.
Take that as an action, yeah.
Take it as an action that will be put in there.
Amendment, sorry.
What's that?
Thank you.
An amendment.
Yeah, amendment. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to fully understand, so the list of membership and the proposed terms of reference includes one member, as it reads, from the Transport Advisory Group, and you've given examples there. So are those members of this Transport Advisory Group, and the Transport Advisory Group would appoint one member to this committee? Is that the proposed approach?
That's the idea at the moment. I imagine that it might get wider over time as more people express interest in joining it, but it would be one member.
Thank you. A couple other questions through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for raising the emittance of the mana whenua. The other sector that I thought may be particularly useful to be involved in this is someone from, say, our Disability Advisory Group. Had that been considered at any time?
It could be considered. It's yes, we do have links to them at the moment, but it's not been formally recommended that they're on this group, but they could be.
Through you, Mr Chair, I would like to suggest, along with Mana Whenua, that be an appropriate organisation to be included in the membership. And with your leave, my final question is, at the end of the membership, it says, any other relevant organisation at the discretion of this committee. Does it need to come back to committee, is the question I'm posing to the table, and would we be comfortable more with, say, at the discretion of the chair of Sustainable Napier, for instance, or the chair of this subcommittee? Posing that question.
Well, my view is I don't think it needs to come back to this committee. I think that the group, active transport group, would be in charge of that side of things.
Yes. So if we're foreshadowing slight amendments to the terms of reference, perhaps we could tidy up that to sit with the chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor McGrath?
Yes, just through the chair. Does active transport encompass scooters?
It's a good question, actually. Technically, I think it would be called something like a micro-mobility group if it encompassed scooters as well. But it's a really difficult division to make, isn't it? Because they are becoming increasingly important. But technically, it's not active transport, I guess, if you hop on a beam, yeah.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Chair. Just sort of following a little bit on from the previous questions by the Deputy Mayor. In the paper, in 5.2, it talks about other proposed members would be invited to represent, and then listing these groups. I'm just interested in who makes that invitation. Is that made by the committee, which at the start is 2 councillors, or is it made by officers, or is it made by Sustainable Napier Committee? The invitation, who issues it?
My understanding of the previous conversation was that it would be delegated to the committee, the group itself, rather than having to go through the committee. Have I got that right?
The chair. A proposal to the chair of that the group, yes. Yep.
I think from Councillor Deputy Mayor Brosnan, we've sorted that line of command out so that the active transport committee actually runs itself.
Yeah, I think through you, Mr Chair, the idea is that it's a fairly fluid group based on the subject or the issue at hand. There may be some citywide issues which require a very different group around the table than a specific, cycleway proposal, for instance. So the ability for the group to be able to form itself and bring expertise in at will is quite an important one, I think.
Councillor Brown?
Kia ora, through the chair. I'm interested in how this committee so it provides strategic direction in reporting to council. Does it need to provide any strategic direction to the Regional Transport Committee?
Through you, Mr Chair, that's the opportunity is there if any issue or decision is considered to be relevant to the regional level, then our representative, which is either the Mayor or Councillor Price, can then raise it as voting members on the Regional Transport Committee. So there was some discussion about having a direct feed from the group into the Regional Transport Committee, but it then got confusing because Hastings has a group, Napier will have a group, and then there might have had to be another group which then fed into the committee. So it was considered more effective just for the representatives of each of the councils to bring things to the table.
And they would work with TAG quite a bit at that level, which is a path through councillors. Councillor Simpson?
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair, I agree with the points raised previously around membership and how people become engaged. I think we do have to be careful about scope to make sure that this committee doesn't run off on tangents. But I think one of the other things we have to be careful looking at financial implications, 5.5, I just wonder whether a statement along those lines need to be included in the terms of reference, that costs fall with the appointing organisations. Otherwise, we might end up with people putting meeting fee allowances claims in. Most terms of reference include an exclusion for that.
That's a good question. Any comments from officers?
Quite happy to include that through you.
Sure, the chair won't let that happen.
The chair is better able to, in terms of reference, I can assure you.
Okay.
Sorry, what was that proposed inclusion?
Most terms of reference where you have adjunct groups coming together state that the costs for the appointees falls with the organisations that appoint them. Clearly, the administrating authority in our case will be paying for the hall hireage and things like that, but we shouldn't be expecting meeting attendance fees.
So do you want that put into the terms of reference? Yes, please. Is everybody happy with that? Okay. Councillor Bowe.
Through you, Mr Chair. Active transport usually includes public transport like buses, and I appreciate that's outside our brief. But will this committee also have the opportunity to make recommendations to, like the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, about bus stops, bus shelters and things like that as part of the active transport strategy?
I think it should, because every journey to a bus stop involves walking. So I think it's an important part of the whole of a bigger picture. I'm not sure that it'd be something that'd be discussed all that regularly, but I think it should be within the scope. Yeah.
I just wondered if that could be mentioned somewhere, or there's no real definition of active transport. And when I think of active transport, I automatically think of buses as well as walking and cycling. I don't want to complicate it, but I'm wondering if that could be mentioned somewhere or looked at by the group.
I think it's something that can be looked at by the group. The idea of the active transport is actually to come from the bottom up, which is what you're talking about, is to get the feedback from people that can come through to the regional transport.
Okay.
Any further questions? Do I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Brosnan? Question.
Yeah, no, just through you, Mr Chair. I'm happy to move, but can I read through what I'm happy to move, those amendments we talked about?
Yep.
So happy to move A as it is. B, approve the terms of reference for the Napier Active Transport Committee with the following amendments. Mana whenua, disability, the representation under the membership section include mana whenua, the disability advisory group. The other amendment is that additional members are at the discretion of the chair of the active transport group. And the fourth amendment, that costs, the one Councillor Simpson raised, that cost fall with attendees for their attendance, however that's worded. So small amendments there. C, just with the slight amendment that after Councillor Graham Taylor's name, we put chair in brackets, and after Councillor Juliet Gregg's name, we add deputy chair in brackets, and D as it stands. Thank you.
Okay, so you moved that. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Taylor, would you like to speak on that, or you've...
I'm happy to reserve. Thank you. Not my area of expertise, but happy to support.
Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. And this paper has been a little bit of time in coming, but I think it is an exciting and important committee that we should establish. Active transport has a huge role to play in the future development of the city, and the spin-offs of active transport are wide, and they're not just about movement, they're about health, and there's lots of good that can come from this committee. I noted in the paper the risk around stakeholders not participating or not getting the word across, and I think there is a risk that has been alluded to with Hastings having a active transport committee and Napier now establishing an active transport committee, that some of the stakeholders may feel that they have to attend too many meetings. If the same police person is there, or someone from the health sector is there, or someone from a cycle advocacy group is there. So I see that this is the start of a journey in relation to active transport. But, I'm pleased that it's here, and I think we have the opportunity to really make a significant contribution to developments in the city in the future.
Juliet, do you want
Oh, yeah, through Mr. Chair, thank you. Just to back up Councillor Taylor's comments there, I think it's a really exciting opportunity to improve the walking and cycling in Napier, and I think we can really focus on it and we can do some great stuff. So it's awesome news. Thank you.
Councillor Bowe?
Yes, I would like to also speak in favour of, and as Councillor Taylor said, it has been a long time coming, and thank you for bringing it forward. But I just wanted to add another benefit, of course, is it will assist in our reduction of emissions, and it will show our commitment to doing that. So well done, and totally support it.
Thank you. No one else? I've just got to say, from a regional transport committee point of view, this is what we want, and as Councillor Taylor said, it's a process probably to bigger and better things. Thank you. So all of those in favour of the recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, asset management policy review. Kate. And Russell. And Hayley.
Sally.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to walk you through my report about the asset management policy review. So basically, we have the asset management policy that we wrote in 2016, and since that moment we haven't updated it. And due to the change landscapes from global and local perspectives, we have changed organizational context and shifting community expectations and infrastructure demand. Our focus is to align the policy with recent standards, address shortcomings, and prepare for the future challenges and needs. And we want to do it proactively and transition from reactive behavior towards proactive strategies. So underpinning factors are like feedback loop, because it was picked up during the audits back in 2019 and 2021 that we need to update it. We have internal evolution like new strategic priorities and organizational transformation. We have external dynamics such as extreme weather events, aging infrastructure, and demands from the industry. And we are not alone here, so that's a national trend. Every local council dealing with similar challenges across the whole country. New asset management policy address gaps and inefficiencies, align with organizational strategic goals, describe asset management processes through asset management life cycle, including planning, acquisition, operation, maintenance, and disposal, consider continuous improvement in asset management system, and define roles and responsibilities better. It also brings benefits like clear accountability, proactive planning, community focus, structured risk management, financial efficiency, and defined expectations. I also put on slides the asset management system hierarchy. So strategic plan drives the policy, policy drives the strategy, and then it will be implemented through the plans. So each layer will have more details and answers on how are we achieving this. And as I mentioned, the next step would be an asset management strategy. We have it at the draft version at the moment. They will be provided objectives, actions, risks, and issues, improvement program, how are we going to form asset management steering group and make more robust framework. The new policy has implications. Financial application won't appear immediately. There is no cost associated with the policy adoption, but there will be expenses via the asset management strategy document, because we will provide some improvement plan. And there also will be cost savings expected in the long term due to a proactive, less reactive approach. And social implications. So we're basically achieving our strategic priorities through advanced asset management practices. And we have two options for consideration. Option A, adopt the new policy and align us with evolving standards and best practices. Or option B, retain the existing policy and accept the risks of reactive management and potential increased cost. So now is a good time to renew the policy. If we're adopting it, then we are showing our commitment to the best practices, ensuring efficiencies in use of resources, and delivering maximum value to our community. We more financially prudent, and your decision today shapes our future direction in asset management. Thank you. Any questions?
Just a point of clarification, in your recommendation, it's A or B, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not both of them together.
No, we have to make a choice.
A or B. So, any questions, please? Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kate. I think the whole purpose of the update to the policy makes perfect sense, especially trying to make sure that we're following good practice, etc. The thing that I'm wondering might be missing, or trying to figure out where it sits, is actually the governance oversight part of it, because I don't see that explicitly included in the policy as it stands. So I see reference to a number of other strategies and documents that sort of overlay with this policy, but particularly around levels of service and how they're set by this group, and also the communication channel. They're very internal, but there doesn't seem to be any governance inclusion in that either.
We can work on communication channels and provide more clarity here. There will be multiple ways to review and participate in revision of level of service through significance policy or through the LTP process. So yeah, officers will come up with changes and decision making.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I think that it is quite important that that is included explicitly in the policy, how, especially from a communication standpoint, how things come back to here, or which committee they come to, whether it's full council, audit and risk. I suppose a bit of a pathway for things, so that we can, so that there's clarity in regards to that.
So looking at a reporting, so this is reporting our performance against the policy back to council and what, yeah. So, we can quite easily add to that. I believe, I think we can come back to the Sustainable Napier Committee would be appropriate. Yes. In terms of performance. Yeah, because we're still yet to develop a roadmap into how quickly and within the affordability aspect to how we're going to deliver this through the organisation. So, yeah,
Thank you.
Entirely appropriate.
So what would you see action you want taken today, though, to cover?
Would be, I mean, happy to hear the, follow the rest of the conversation or comments that others may have, but that there's an action for some amendments to the policy.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, through the chair. There was one of your slides before had a hierarchy of documents. Got a question on that slide. So one of the things I noticed that our policy didn't have was as a goal or what we're trying to achieve as an organisation. And I see you've got that up in the strategic plan. Can you remind me where that sits? What's that document?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Oh, see, so see the 5 boxes there, and the asset management policy sits below it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a bit confused. What's that strategic plan document?
Strategic plan, that's your newly defined strategic priorities, because they also have processes and principles, and they are driving asset management policy as the next level, as in policy would shape up the strategy and it waterfalls.
So, yeah, just through the chair, I guess the terminology there, the strategic plan, is the council's strategic objectives. So looking at the resilience and the financial sustainability aspects. So looking to achieve that through asset management, which then drives that policy. And then we have an asset management strategy, which is a working document for staff in terms of how we end up enacting on the policy to deliver those objectives.
Okay.
There's probably too many strategy parts up there.
A further one, if I may. In the strategic direction we've set so far, we haven't actually set a goal for what level of asset management maturity we want to get to. And you, as you mentioned,
Correct.
that roadmap.
Yep.
So where do you see that fitting into this process?
So I see that in terms of our reporting back through with how we're looking at that roadmap and how council, to what level and what detail we want to invest in terms of asset management. Because there are a variety of different levels of investment in asset management we can do depending on the facilities and I guess council's desire at the time or need and how much risk they would like to or not have on the books. So we sort of, a lot of that detail is yet still to come through our long-term plan process.
Yep.
And our asset management team at the moment are working through that at the moment, looking at what the budgets look like and what level of sort of a risk, or not a risk profile, but looking at their statutory obligations that council need to meet, looking at, all those risks associated with those activities and what needs to be invested in it and what level. So, yeah, and I expect that to be talked about through the long-term plan process with council. Yeah.
Yeah. Couldn't follow another one through the chair.
So both questions been answered so far?
Yes, they have.
Yep. Thank you.
Can you talk me through where an asset that we own for investment purposes would fit into this strategy?
I would say that if I'm not mistaken, we have investment strategy driven by financial team. So this answer should be there. Or was your question about how we will link an asset management policy and the other strategies?
I think maybe Jess could.
Answer that question through the chair. I'd expect that to sit outside of this and sit within our investment strategy. So I wouldn't expect specifically our assets owned within objectives for investment purely to sit within this policy or strategy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that?
And I do have one more question, if that's all right, through the chair. Just some timeline, a projected timeline around when we might see that asset management strategy come back to us.
As soon as it's practical. So we have a draft at the moment, but we need some discussion. We need to have some discussions on how are we gonna achieve our objectives, and once it would be clarified, we would come up to you and share the document. I would expect that it would happen before the new year, so this year.
Yeah, just through the chair, a lot of that's going to be shaped as we work through the long-term plan process to, understand some of those details. So,
You finished?
Oh, yes, I think it's more discussion from here would be, yeah.
Councillor Bogue.
Just a comment about perhaps a little typo. It says this is going to be effective from the 31st of September. 30 days has September, April, June, and and I just wanted it meant to be the 21st of September, which is today.
through the chair, yes, I believe that was the case. Thank you for that.
In 2 locations. Top and bottom of
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay, do I, Councillor Crown, your issue?
My issue?
Oh, well, what you brought up.
Yes, would you like a little bit of wording around that?
Yeah, how you...
The amendment? That clarity is provided around the governance, communication channels and reporting mechanisms that will be utilised. I think if we add something like that, that covers us as an action. Yeah.
So do you want that in the recommendation or
Happy to take advice as to procedurally whether that
Yeah.
needs to be an action or included in the resolution.
what would you feel on that, Russell?
I'm just wondering, sorry.
Yeah, so I think probably we can just take that as an action and we'll
Yeah.
get back to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a... Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. And just to add to Councillor Crown's point, the other part that she mentioned at the start was our role in setting and approving the level of service assets. So that's the other part to that.
So through the chair, that will be through the LTP process.
Yep.
Thank you. So, no other questions? Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Brown. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, no, I think it is important that as a council and an organisation that has a considerable asset base, that we do maintain best practice and up-to-date standards in how we treat our assets. So congratulations to the staff for bringing our management of $1.3 billion worth of assets up to modern standards.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I think it's great that this paper's coming to us and the staff, but also that the staff have provided us the opportunity in the background to upskill our own knowledge in asset management as one of our key governance skills. And just concurring with Councillor Simpson about how this is absolutely fundamental going into our LTP. This is not an area of local government that's done well in New Zealand historically, and the gap analysis that have come to us in audit and risk show how far we've got to go on this journey, but it's exciting that we're on the journey. There's some really challenging conversations coming ahead of us. This is going to cost a lot of money if we're going to do it well, but hopefully save us a lot of money in the long term and have better outcomes for our community. So very excited to be taking a significant step on this journey.
You was.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was a little bit late off the mark, sorry. I should have actually spoken prior to you asking for a mover and seconder. I think the motion actually needs to include subject to the addition of the action point from Councillor Crown.
Okay.
Oh yeah, adopt the revised policy subject to the changes as requested in the action.
Yeah, so that goes in, that we
Yeah.
refer back to the action point. Is that right? We refer to
Yeah.
the action point.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
So you just
Thank
need to check with your mover and seconder that they're happy with
with
that.
that.
Yeah, I took that as read, so.
Yeah.
Got big nods there. Okay, so... And just bear with us for a second, we'll just write the action down. Have you?
No pressure.
Can you just repeat it, please, Mia Wise?
Sorry? I've got that, it's Sally's. So request clarity can be provided.
Oh, from the, Sally, can you just cover your action? Was a path, wasn't it a path for?
That clarity is provided around the governance, communication channels and reporting mechanisms that will be utilised. Does that make sense?
Okay. So the motion is, let me just.
Included.
Okay, receive for consideration the report titled Asset Management Policy Review dated 21 September 2023. B, approve and adopt the Asset Management Policy 223, subject to the changes requested in the actions. The action is request clarity can be provided around the governance, communication channels and the reporting mechanism utilised.
That will be, maybe included rather than provided, so included in the policy.
Okay. So you're happy with that, Nigel? Really? Any further comments? So all of those in favour of the officer's recommendation, or the recommendations what I've just outlined, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much. This is the close of the Sustainable Napier meeting. We'll move into future Napier in about 10 minutes, please. So we've got 10 minutes.